Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Minash. This is the weekend edition where we interview notable people from the world of real estate investing. Today is no exception. We have a great guest all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to the show, Chris Lento.
Thanks for having me, Victor. I'm excited to be here.
Well, great to have you here. You were last on the show, almost a year and a half ago, so lots changed in the marketplace in that time period. But maybe for the folks who haven't met you yet, perhaps give a little bit of your backstory and how you got to this point in your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I have a undergrad and a graduate degree in mechanical engineering, and right out of college went into a electromechanical engineering job in the defense industry, effectively in the Boston area. But at the same time, I became very interested in real estate almost right away. So I moved into an apartment in Boston, quickly realized the rents are high. I'm sharing this place with a bunch of friends. Who owns this building? How do they buy it? And I just sort of became very interested. So over the next year and a half, I wasted the time of a lot of multifamily brokers and read a lot of books, and ended up buying a off-market deal in kind of near the airport, and not the greatest neighborhood, but an up-and-coming neighborhood. And then for the next 15 years, while I worked my kind of W-2 job, I grew my portfolio, learned concepts along the way, changed my mindset from this is a hobby, a potential side retirement plan or auxiliary income, to this is what I want to focus my career on. 8 years ago, jumped over to do this full time, and it's been no looking back.
Love it. So one of the things that I remember from our last conversation is that you had some pretty forward-thinking philosophy when it comes to management and property management in particular, establishing a really strong resident relationship between property manager and residents, as well as some really strong systems for things that you wouldn't normally even include as part of your baseline operations. Talk a little bit about that, because there were some innovative ideas there.
Yeah, I think when I started, my portfolio is distributed around the Southeast. So I moved from Boston. I live in Boston still, but I transitioned a lot of my properties to Southeastern states with higher population growth. And I needed to convince myself, and then later my investors, that I could manage these properties from 1,000 miles away. Leading on my engineering background, I first set up kind of systems relative to spreadsheets and dashboards and metrics. And that's kind of the core of our process. But over the last maybe 5 years, it's become clear that it's really the people on the ground that drive the day-to-day decisions that you'll never see, that set the culture, set the tone. They check in with their regional managers and they check in with us for the big decisions. But we want the on-site staff to feel ownership. We want them to feel buy-in. We do use third-party management, so we don't have kind of direct control over our staff. However, we do pay their salaries and we do talk to them at a minimum once a week, if not more. So we've tried to establish a feeling among the on-site staff, the leasing agents, the maintenance supervisors and on-site staff, that they're part of our team. Some of the ways we do that is we try to know their birthdays. We kind of know their family situations, might send them a note or a gift card on their birthdays, and just try to establish that personal relationship so that we can reinforce the culture of investors and residents are our customers. So that's how we look at it. We have two customers, they work together, right? If the residents are happy, we have good retention, we have low, good maintenance response time, drives NOI, drives our investor returns. So really having these systems in place to do those two levels.
Well, as a fellow engineer, I'm sure you measure things just like I do. I'm curious to know if, from your perspective, if there's a correlation between resident turnover and employee turnover.
I mean, 100%. Switching property management companies, it has a direct correlation to resident turnover because there's chaos generated and just a transition has gaps. Employee turnover with a property management team has those same gaps, but what it also has is a loss of relationship. So a lot of residents really like their property managers, and property managers have a very difficult job. They need to be an enforcer of rules and standards and, pay on time and don't leave your grill on your porch. But they also need to be friendly and be able to deliver that message in a way that gets the resident kind of engaged. And if you have a good property manager that develops a relationship, even if the next one that comes in is just as strong from an emotional intelligence perspective, it's going to take a while to build that up. And in that time, maybe that property that is lease up down the street and offering 2 months free rent becomes more attractive because some of the glue that keeps the person at your property has just gone away. So
Mm.
I definitely see a correlation there.
So what if that property manager is great at developing relationship with the residents, but from an owner standpoint is not doing what the owner needs to effectively manage the asset, manage expectations, customer service, all those other things that are requisite parts of the job? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on to what extent and whether you can bolster the support for those other things in other ways. So typically our properties are in the 200 to 250 unit range. That's at least our newer properties, newer acquisitions. So you have multiple staff in the office and you have a regional manager and you might even have kind of a floater with the property management company. So I would say that would be a conversation with our regional. Here's the pros, what we really like about this on-site manager, and then here's some of the gaps. And let's come up with a plan to fill those gaps first, because that relationship is important. But as you mentioned, executing the business plan, doing the things that need to be done are important as well. So if they can be augmented, and you can kind of assign that person almost as a customer service role or a resident ambassador, where you can backfill their role. You do need that person in the end to do both. So I would think, depending on the severity of that deficiency, it may be a change of staff.
And what I'm hearing is you have sufficient bench depth that even if you remove one individual, there's enough backup, there's enough touch points that you don't experience that loss of continuity.
That's the goal, and I think that comes with scale to some degree. So right now we have just got our fifth property closed in the Atlanta metro. So that gives us some flexibility. Our property manager values us there, so they'll bring in, kind of like backups if needed. And then additionally, we can rotate staff across those properties if a specific property doesn't have the depth at the time, because it's a balance, right? You don't want to overstaff in the event of a problem.
Correct.
So yeah, we manage that really through scale and through having strong property management relationships.
So what are some of the things that you're doing lately from an asset management standpoint? There's been a lot of new supply injected in many markets. Atlanta is one of them. In many respects, many primary markets are oversupplied today, which is definitely going to create a squeeze for somebody, possibly you as well. How do you create a more sticky offer so that you improve resident retention?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we are seeing that. We're seeing some oversupply in the Atlanta market, although we're starting, the absorption is still there. But what we're trying to do is, one of our property managers has a phrase, and I'm sure she didn't make it up, but closing the back door. So trying to keep renewals as you're leasing. You don't want every lease renewal to just move out. So part of it is just having that relationship and having the property managers develop those tight relationships with the residents, and we have a sheet that they go through with each resident when they're talking about moving out. That's the cost of moving, first month's rent, security deposit. We understand that there's a lease up across town, and you have 2 months rent free. But hey, here's what you have to come out of pocket to move. Here's what's going to happen in 2 months when that free rent goes away. And just try to educate them on what that means. Additionally, we do try to get a lot of resident referrals, because if you have friends in the apartment complex, and if it's a family, if the kids have friends, well, there's a dynamic there that, do we want to go somewhere else, or are our kids going to like it? Are we going to like it? And we foster that through a lot of resident events as well. So we put a decent budget to the property management to have pool parties, to have, trick or treating in the parking lots, to have Valentine's Day pictures and chocolates. And, we try to get creative. And actually across our properties, we're starting to do some competitions, like which PM team had the best event this quarter, or hero of the quarter, maintenance team solved some sort of problem in-house that saved X amount of dollars by going to a vendor, things like that.
Love it. So As you're looking at, well, let's just talk about from an investment thesis. You said you've made a few acquisitions. How has your investment thesis changed? Certainly the market is nowhere near as frothy as it was a couple of years ago. Is this opportunistic? Do you have a specific mandate that you've refined?
I mean, we don't have a fund, so we don't have a mandate, but we are trying to grow. And what we've done is really adjusted our underwriting to reflect the current market. So we're not underwriting, heavy rent growth. We're not underwriting really any value adds right now. And if we do, they're very minor. So things like, adding washer dryer to the unit and being able to rent that out. Small $4,000 upgrades that we think we can get $40 a month on, $50 a month on. But right now, the idea that we're going to turn a unit and get another $200 is not in our underwriting. And then additionally, what we're seeing is we're being patient. So we're setting our loss to lease higher than we used to. We're setting our vacancy a little bit higher. We're increasing our bad debt. And if the deal pencils, then we're aggressive with it. And if it doesn't, we move to the next one. And we're seeing buyers be more flexible than they have been. I think sellers.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, buyers. They understand the market. I think it took a while, and there was a lot of hope that rates would come down and they would get their projections. And now it's okay. This is reality. We want to make a move. We want to free up capital, return it to our investors. So this is the price to transact. And I think being active through the kind of stagnant period and closing deals in some tough scenarios has given us a strong reputation with brokers. So when we're in that best and final group, they can say, hey, these guys have closed in far worse situations than now. So if certainty of close is your number one metric, and a lot of times it is, that's your number one pick. Maybe they're not highest on price, but if you don't want to be having this conversation in 60 days when the lowest price that could close in 45 days turns out they can't and they're not gonna, then that's your candidate. And we've seen that we get rebounds quite a bit. So they go lowest price, and then 30 days later, the broker's like, hey, we're not seeing the movement on the lender side that we expect, and we're getting nervous. So yeah, I guess it's opportunistic, it's patient, and it's adjusting underwriting.
Love it. Well, Chris, if folks want to connect, if they want to learn more, what's the best way?
The best way is my website, emcapitalgroup.com, and it has my email address and my phone number. And then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, just Chris Lento. And yeah, other than that, I'm not a social media person. So those are the only two ways.
Love it. Well, Chris, great to connect as always. And for the listeners at home, definitely connect with Chris Lento at emcapitalgroup.com. The links will be in the show notes as well as his LinkedIn. And in the meantime, have an awesome rest of your weekend. Go make some great things happen. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.